Hey, World Cruisers, it's Thursday, August 29th, 2024. We're on the Ultimate World Cruise, just arriving in St. John's, Newfoundland. And we hopped off the ship. We're headed down the main street here, and we're going to go on a trip on a small boat to go look for puffins and whales off of a small port just a little bit north of St. John's.
Moose burgers. The salt house.
You get moose burgers.
I am looking for
And coming up on your right is a poutineery
Whale?
where you can get poutine, which is like poutine is French fries with goop put on top of it. I don't know what that stuff is, but it's pretty good. Anyway, we never did have time to stop and get any poutine while we were there. But we had about a half an hour bus ride out to Bullsport or something like that, where we caught this sightseeing trip out to see possibly whales and puffins. That island you see out there is it's part of the wildlife preserve they have here that includes 4 islands. It happens to be the second largest puffin reserve and breeding ground in the world. The largest one's in Iceland, where we just came from. But this one, my camera has no chance of seeing those puffins. You're going to see them zipping around in the sky with a very fast wing beat. Those right there, flying along. If they're black and the wings are moving fast, those are puffins. If they're soaring or you see white wings flapping slowly, those are gulls. There's 2 or 3 different varieties that live on this island. So in the rocks that you see down close to you with the white tips on the edge, that's where the gulls live. There are no puffins in the rocks. The puffins make their burrows up in those grassy areas you can see up on the hills, and they burrow like 5 feet back in. And there's 2 little rooms, one where they raise the eggs and the other one's the bathroom. And they're about 5 feet back in, so the gulls can't get into them and destroy the eggs. You can see that there's no grass on the lower rocks because in the wintertime there's huge waves that pound these islands and it washes away all the soil. So the grass doesn't begin until quite a ways up on the island. And I have some pictures courtesy of Mark Sweetman of the puffins and also the bald eagles that are resident in this preserve. It's like a national park for Canada. And this is one of 4 islands, as I mentioned. So you can see some birds soaring up there. Those are not puffins. Puffins are going to be zipping by with their wings flapping fast. Now, puffins they spend 4 months of the year here on the breeding grounds, and the other 8 months of the year they spend out on the open sea. And they can dive as much as 60 feet. And they live completely on the water, just floating for those 8 months until they come back here. It takes about 4 years for them to reach maturity till they can start breeding. And so for those first 4 years, once the chicks have hatched and have survived the exodus, they stay out all year. And then only after they're 4 years old do they come back here. They return to the same place and they breed for life with the same mate. And this is the bald eagle. This is Mrs. Bald Eagle that were there as we headed out. So there's what a puffin looks like. And they don't fly very well. That's why they have to flap their wings so fast. A lot of times they'll run on the surface of the water until they catch enough air to get airborne. But they go out and catch these small bait fish and bring them back to feed their chicks. And then once the breeding season's up after 4 months, they just take off and leave the chicks to figure out how to fend for themselves. And they'll oftentimes when they take off, their wings will hit the surface of the water until they get enough air, a gust of wind or something, to get enough altitude to fly. And they're beautiful birds. And they go like up the Labrador Sea and up, out on the open North Atlantic is where they live for 8 months out of the year. So these are the black-legged gulls that are their cousins, but they're the ones that live in the rocks. So after we're done with our fish or our puffin tour, we didn't see any whales. We went to this fish place because I was trying to get some lobster. It's lobster season on the East Coast. We were successful at doing that. Now we're headed up to Signal Hill, and on our way we're going to make a couple of stops. First stop is at this location to honor the dog breeds that are local from this area, which are the Newfie, the Newfoundland, and the Labrador, which is a favorite of dog owners all over the world. Not so much the Newfie, but sad they don't breed these dogs here anymore. They have to import them, but the Newfies are huge. And on our way up to the Signal Hill, we stopped at this, I guess at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. This is a monument to the Canadian soldiers who died in World War I. The monument was built in 1924. Now the next stop, I thought Jane said we were going to go to a jelly bean store, but what she said was going to see jelly bean houses. This district of houses is called Jelly Bean because of all the different colors. And there's a whole bunch of neighborhoods like this where the houses are very colorful. A lot of them are, historic and have to be restored just the way they were. On our way up to Signal Hill is a nature preserve. We're almost up to the top. And there's a museum up there that talks about the significance of this Signal Hill, which was a fort and a place where they signaled the ship out coming into St. John. That little castle-looking thing up there is where the first telegraph signals were sent across the Atlantic over to Europe. It was a historic thing. I think it was Marconi. This is the museum. We went inside. We saw a movie about all the battles between the Canadians and the French and the English to maintain control of St. John, which was a major fishing port for cod back in the day. There's a moratorium now on fishing for cod, but there is a beautiful view from up here of the town of St. John's, which I'm headed out to now. And you'll see Serenade of the Seas about 1 o'clock out there in the harbor. So St. John's is not a very big port, and to get into it, you have to come through a narrow, which is off to the left. I'll show you that in a minute. But this port, they do a lot of servicing of offshore oil platforms. So those big orange ships off on the right are oil platform service ships. And you can see Serenade off straight up now, about 12 o'clock. Then over on the left is the narrow passageway called the Narrows. You have to completely get in. We were actually delayed getting out, had to stay overnight. The wind was high and Serenade came out the Narrows with wind. So this is the sail out the next morning. And we are headed to Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is just a little bit farther south. And so we'll be producing a video from Halifax, Texas. See you then.